Hey everyone, welcome to Love Them Well. I'm with my friend Megan, who you've probably seen on a few videos because we do book things together. And I'm so excited because we are interviewing an author today, Leia M. Johnson, who wrote this amazing book called Shine Until Tomorrow. And so we get to talk with her today. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for meeting with us today.
Absolutely. I loved meeting with you before about my other book, and so when this came out, I was hoping you would ask me to come back.
Yay. Oh my goodness. It was so much fun. Well, I'm thankful for you because you introduced me to, first of all, this book here that I will link below that we interviewed a couple months ago. I don't remember. It seems like a month ago, but it was probably longer than that. Um, this book was so good. The,
Thank you.
the illustrations, the writing, everything was so beautiful. And so I'll be pushing this as a great Christmas gift for people, adults and children alike. But then the other day at school, Megan ran down the hall and gave me this book. And my first thought was, this is beautiful. Like the cover. And
So,
then,
do you know the story behind that cover?
well, she did share, but share with us. Yes.
Yeah, so one of my friends was actually just doing the cover design, the actual like logistics of the cover design, and she had thrown out some ideas, and they were all beautiful, and we were kind of just, discussing what we thought was best. And she has a 4-year-old son, so my friend's name is April, and April's son is 4. His name's Marcel, and she was working as moms do. She was working. This is not her main job, so she was working during the time when she had him with her, and so she set him up with some finger paints on the side while she was doing cover design. And he walked over to her and he showed her this, painting that he had made. And he said, "Mommy, it's a picture of a mommy saying shh to a baby." And so she took a picture of it and said, "I'm working, and so is Marcel." And she sent it to me, and I said, "That's the cover. That's the cover.
Yes.
It's a picture of a mommy saying shh to a baby." And so obviously he did not design the parts that have words and all that, but
Right.
he did do the finger painting that's in the background of the book.
That is so cool. And I thought it matches this one. I don't know if
Yes,
that's
I
intentional with
that
the
was
purple.
that was absolutely intentional. I
Okay.
I wanted them to be sister books, pun intended, because they do, obviously handle some of the same subject matter, but also because they're both my books, and I wanted them to look pretty on the shelf next to each other.
Yes. Yes. So, okay, so this is a memoir and it was a beautiful story. In fact, I would be passing her in the hall, like out to door duty. I'd be like, don't tell me what happens, but what happens? But don't tell me because it was like reading, it was like reading fiction. Like I was so enthralled. What's going to happen next? I had no idea. And so you are a really good writer. And and a lot of so I teach 7th grade English, and we would talk with the other English teachers and be like, she's a good writer. This is really good. So yeah, thank you for writing such a beautiful story. So you talk about in the book when you started this. Could you give us a little background of how long it took you to write this? And
Sure.
it's not even finished. The story's not finished because you're still living it. But yes,
I'm
how
still
long?
here. I'm still alive. Yes, all the people involved are as well. So,
Yes.
yeah. So I really started writing the book as like as personal catharsis. It was because we had gone through some pretty traumatic things, and it is centered around our story of foster care. But there were a lot of other things that happened in the course of the years that we were fostering that had nothing to do with foster care that were really hard. And so we had gone through this season that just everything was hard all the time.
Yeah.
And I've been a writer my whole life. I've and I always tell people, when they say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," especially if I'm, talking with kids. I am a secondary English teacher by trade. I'm currently teaching 5th grade. And I tell kids all the time, if you write, you're a writer, and it took me a long time to be an author, a published author, but I've been a writer my whole life. And so I have always used writing as catharsis. When I was young, I would journal. And as I got older, I would write down stories just so that I didn't forget things about my kids, those things that were so funny that your kids do when they're little. And I'm so glad that I did that because now, of course, Facebook reminds me all the time of funny things that happened. And so I've just always been someone who records my thoughts in one way or another. And so when we finished going through the fostering process and ended, adopting our 2 daughters that we ended up adopting, um, I was just left with a lot of feelings. And so it was really just a way for me to process all that we had been through and to get the story down on paper, because I think one, it's really important to pass down history to my kids because this is their history. And I also know, because I've studied a lot about brain science and being a foster parent and becoming trauma informed, and then with a lot of the other work that I've done in throughout my lifetime, unrelated to foster care, I've learned a lot about brain science and how storytelling is healing.
Mm.
And that when we tell our stories, it literally creates new synapses in our brains. And so if we're going to heal from trauma, a lot of times storytelling is one of the best ways to do that. And so I sat down to write. And at the time, I had 4 small children. My husband was living in another state because of the military. And I basically asked my mom, can you take the kids, just be responsible for the kids on Mondays, where I could, my boys were in school, but the girls were not. And so I said, if you could just take the girls on Mondays and just give me my Mondays to have a few hours on Mondays to write. And so over the course of, so many Mondays, I wrote this manuscript, and that was in 2019. And
Okay.
so, that was a really long time ago. It was 5 years ago. And I finished it in the spring of 2019. We very quickly, after I finished it, the first draft of it, we moved across the nation to Washington State. And then, of course, the world shut down. And so I was in the process of trying to maybe find an agent, trying to get this published. I had not published my children's book either at that time. I had no books published at that time. And so I had really started pursuing publication because I believed in the book. And I'd been met with a lot of really nice compliments, but nobody really wanted to take it on because nonfiction, especially memoir, is generally reserved for famous people, and I'm not famous. And so, they said, this is a beautiful story. You're a great writer, but I just don't know that you have the platform for it. And it's true. I don't have the platform for it necessarily for bigger independent, or bigger publishers to take on a book like mine. And so I kind of just put it on a shelf and shut it down with the world, and did the pandemic life, did another cross country move from Washington State to Virginia. And in the process of that happening, my friend Katie Odie had started a publishing company, and she asked if she could publish my picture book because she had been an early reader of the picture book and believed in it. And she really wanted to sort of establish herself as a publisher who puts out really, really quality content. And so I said, sure, nobody else will give me a chance. And I believed in her ability to make it happen. And so she was instrumental in getting that picture book out. And it ended up, we went on to win a Kirkus Star. It won Best New Voice in Independent Publishing. It really put Phoenix Media and Books on the map. So it ended up being this award-winning picture book, which was very exciting. And we're all very proud of this little baby book that could. And so then Katie came back to me and she said, what else do you have? I feel like this has been such a wonderful process working together. What else do you have that I could publish? And, I was like, well, this book that's sitting on this dusty shelf over here. And I love it. It's the story of my heart. Do you want to try doing an adult memoir? And so that's how the book came to be. But it took, so it took 5 years after I wrote it, the first draft, that it took 5 years for it to actually be published.
Wow. Wow. Well, it's funny that you say, well, it was ready. Like it was ready to go because they're not too far apart in their publication. It's it's really cool. And there was one part where you said I might write, I was even telling you about this, where you were talking a little bit about growing up and your theology growing up. And you said I might write another book about this. And I wrote in the margin, please do, because what you were saying, I had the same things in my mind growing up. And so do that.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I've said for a long time, because I did my master's degree is in creative writing.
Mm.
My thesis was a work of memoir. And so it's really my comfort zone. This is where I love to write. I love to write about real life. But I've always said that I'm a lot more comfortable writing from the scar than the wound.
Mm.
Because when you write from the wound, it doesn't always come out in a pretty way. But if you write from the scar, then you're able to have that perspective of the wound happened, but you've also healed from it. And I've probably written about faith more than anything else in terms of topics that I've written about. Faith is probably the thing that I write about most. But I still feel very much like I'm writing from a wound a lot of times there.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not to say that there won't come a time when I can write a book that's really focused on faith. But for now, I have to write about other things and just sort of infuse those things with how it informs my faith.
Yes, yes. Well, I wrote my very first note for you as I was taking notes on this, and I felt this way throughout the whole book, that this book shows the best of humanity.
Oh,
But in everything, I mean, it's with everybody that you talked about in the book, it is like this is the best of people coming together and giving these children this life. And but I know that you come off so humble in this book,
oh.
but the whole time I'm thinking, this girl's a rock star. Like, this is insane. The way that you, and I know it probably wasn't, I mean, you talk about how difficult it was to keep the mindset of um same team, same
Mhm.
team. And how difficult it is when you don't feel like we're not all playing on the same team. Come on. And but I learned from you in this book about just holding on to the positive, and then the part where you felt in your heart to just keep showing forgiveness, keep showing love. And I felt like, and I'm sure that's the point of that part of the book, when you were in the parking garage and you had that conversation with one of the people in the book, that was like the change. But it was because you showed love throughout the whole time. And I was just amazed by it. And so I think people can learn from this. And I just appreciate that, like learn about life. And at the same time as reading this, I was reading Anne of Green Gables with my seventh grade English class. And there were times where I'd be reading this and quotes from Anne would come up, one of them being that life is about meetings and partings. And you talked about that. I even wrote that quote in the book. You talked about like with your life in the military, it is about like meetings and partings. And then here you were able to just to bring everyone together and still have these relationships. It's just so good.
Well, thank you for putting me in the same category as Anne because she's
Yes,
very clearly um, just one of the best characters of all time in
I
literature.
agree.
So to be put in her company is a big compliment. And as far as what you're saying about, that you learned something from the book, I really like that makes me really happy to hear because I really want this book to, at one point in time, we had put, there's the title Shine Until Tomorrow, then there's a subtitle, and then underneath it says a memoir. And at one point it said a foster care memoir.
Mm.
And very clearly, the framework of this book is about foster care. But I pushed back a little bit when we were all making the decisions about it because I wanted this book to feel accessible to people who have never done foster care, have never thought about foster care. But I wanted people who, if you've gone through anything hard, I want you to be able to
Yes,
see your story in the book.
yes,
And so it is a foster care memoir, but it's really a memoir about facing adversity and making choices along the way that serve everyone involved. And I certainly hope it's always weird when someone calls you humble because then you feel like, oh, I feel so proud of myself for being so humble. No, but there's the only way to do what I did was to remain humble because if I made it about me or if I made it about if I made it about me, like if the focus was on me or if I tried to be a hero, none of this would have been possible. I had to rely on those sort of like instinctual things that occur in our spirits that we don't even really know how it happens. They are I think you know things that you don't have control over sometimes. And I certainly would say that my natural self would not be as forgiving and kind and loving and all of those things if I didn't have something supernatural occurring in my life. And so faith is a mystery. Faith is sometimes something I still don't understand, but I do know that I cling to some of the things of the faith of my childhood, which are those things that love is unconditional and that grace is free and that forgiveness is what we lead with because we've already been forgiven. And I still have to work out that theology and what that means in real life every single day. And so, it wasn't something that I had power within myself to do. I really had to rely on those concepts of I was forgiven, so I have to forgive. I was loved first, so I have to love. I was given grace, so I have to give grace. Um, and that's what, sustained me through some really, really, really terrible things.
And it seems like that, I mean, I know that I don't think everyone could hold that tightly the way that you did to those things. I don't know. I just felt like, man, she's just a saint. Like this is amazing. But
I'm
but
not a saint.
no,
I'm
well,
definitely not a saint.
well, and let me reiterate again, like there was nothing about this book that was like, look at me, like not at all. That was part of the humility of it. I'm like, this lady, this is anyone could learn from this in just how to love others. And I named my channel Love Them Well because I feel like that's just the point of life. Like, how do we just love other people really well? And this book embodied that. Like, this is how you love people. Not only the children that were in your care, but their mom and the dads and like your family, your boys, your husband, the in-laws, the foster's in-law, which I loved that you talked about that too, just keeping families together. And it was just so cool. So I'm glad that I got to hear this story, which I wouldn't have known had it not been for you writing it down. So I'm really glad that you did. Um, yeah, I wrote down, let's see. Oh, the same team. I've already said that with my husband sometime, like, same team. I learned it from a book. But I love that concept, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause I think it's really easy, especially when people are stressed, especially when there's something really hard happening. It's really easy to look for someone to blame or why didn't you do this? Because if you had done this, then this would have been, and it just doesn't serve anyone to approach
Yeah.
things like that. It doesn't serve anyone to place blame because the reality is we're all stuck in this together. And so we can either choose to be adversarial and make things harder, or we can choose to cooperate. And that doesn't always mean that we're like nice all the time or that it goes, like, okay, well, we're all on the same team. And then we really are. Like sometimes you say same team and the other person's like, nope. And
Right.
so,
Right.
you can only control what you can control. And I've also said this about this situation and about other hard things I've been through in my life is when something's happening to me that I really don't have control over, because that's what a lot of this book is about too, is, you know,
Right.
I could not control a lot of the things that were happening. And that's really hard for me because I'm
Really hard for
very,
anyone.
yes, it's hard
I
for
mean,
everybody, but I'm
yeah.
very ordered, I'm very intentional, I'm very in control of things so that things go smoothly. And that's my natural personality. And so when I'm in a situation where something is happening to me, truly, I have to reiterate with myself I'm not going to allow this thing or I'm not going to allow this person to change who I am. And I know who I am. My identity is rooted in these ideas of love and grace and forgiveness and kindness and humility. And that's who I am. And so um, I don't want to allow outside forces to change who I am. And so there are many, many times in my life when I have felt, my confidence lagging or like maybe oh gosh, this thing might be too hard. This might be too hard. And then I remind myself that it's not because I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then there was something else you said that reminded me of you know, the part where you said something about, there wasn't a part of this that where I was trying to like brag about myself. And I'm glad
No.
that that comes across because I certainly would never want to appear braggy or nothing. I would never, that would be horrifying if that
Yes.
came across that way. But there's something, there's a lot being said right now in pop culture and with a lot of other books and famous people talking about vulnerability and the idea of vulnerability. And it's become sort of this like pop culture buzzword of, being vulnerable. And I've just really tried my best to study that concept and really get to the root of what that actually means because I think we have a lot of false vulnerability in our world where
Mm.
we think that, we go to dinner with a friend and we'll share one little tiny part of ourselves, and we still try to package it in a way that's like, well, let's make sure this isn't too ugly, because if it's too ugly, they may not accept it, or they may reject me, or things like that. And I've come to a point in my old age that I don't have time for that. Like, I either have to show up fully as myself and be accepted, or show up fully as myself and not be accepted and move on, because those aren't my people. And so, that's kind of the spirit with which I wrote this book, is like, I'm going to put it all out there, and I'm not going to try to package it in a way that makes me look good. I'm not going to package it in a way that ties it up in a, nice little package like a Hallmark movie. This is going to be what really happened according to me. And so that comes from this place of like really, really searching for true vulnerability, which is coming with the whole package and saying, this is what it is. And I'm not making excuses or apologizing for it.
Yeah. Well,
So it's
that's living in truth is so important. And I even wrote that in one of the pages. Because speaking, there's so many places in the book where you had to just kind of like keep your mouth shut. Like you couldn't say how you really felt. But then at that one point where you were just like, listen, and you said truth. Truth is what changed the story. It broke everything down of like, you know what? And because you had built a foundation of trust and love, it was received well. And that's, again, that's what humanity is. That's the best of relationships, is being truthful with each other so that when things do get hard and we do have to speak truth, it's received well. So that was a beautiful part. That's something I took away from it. That was just a really cool part of the book. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think, there's a reason why we say the truth will set you free. I mean, we say
Yeah.
that all the time. The
Yeah.
truth will set you
I
free,
didn't
and
think of
I'm a big
that.
believer. I'm a big believer in the truth setting us free. Like,
Yeah.
there's no room for artifice. There's no room for sugarcoating things when you're dealing with human beings. Like, you
Yeah.
just got to be honest. And I also always say candor is kindness. Which there are probably people in my life that are like, could you be less candorous, please? Less candor, please, because I don't necessarily have a mechanism in me that is you know like where I can sugarcoat things. I can't. And so, but I think candor is kindness. I think setting up people with the right expectations and being truthful about things, instead of trying to protect people's feelings or protect the story, whatever. I think it's more important to tell the truth than it is to protect people's feelings sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you have to be unkind about it, but
Right.
you can tell the truth in kindness. You
Yes.
absolutely.
Well, and you did that really well because in this book you're discussing many different people and it wasn't ever there wasn't a point ever where it's like ooh, that was kind of too like not at all. It just all was good. It was all very kindly said and respectful toward all of these people that were a part of this story. And I am curious, I mean, where we're at now? Like where are you guys at now with your relationships? How old are your girls? Which I didn't know, like, is it a spoiler to say that you did wind up
No,
adopting?
it's not a spoiler. It becomes
I
I
For
mean,
me it
early
was
on.
something to look forward to. Something to look forward to. It's not a spoiler, it's something to look forward to. And but I yeah, could you tell us anything about where you are now in the story?
Yeah, sure. So we're obviously still very much involved with all the people, in the story. So after we left Illinois, we did not open our foster care license in Washington, because we got there, we were talking about opening our licensing there, and then the pandemic started, and we were like, well, that's probably not the right time for us to start a new journey. And so we did, and it really gave us time as a family to cocoon around our girls, and then of course we got a lot of cocooning in with the pandemic. And then we moved to Virginia, and we did open our foster care license, and we did a lot of respite care. Which respite care is when you just take care of kids for a very short period of time and then they go back to their foster homes.
Okay.
And so we enjoyed that. And then there were several times where we got calls for placements and we kept saying yes, and then they wouldn't bring the kids to us. And so we sort of took that as a sign, that coupled with some like changing things that were happening in our life, outside of foster care, that we thought maybe this is the sign that this is the wrong season to be doing this, and that we need to just close our license and focus on these other priorities right now. And it was absolutely the right decision. Our girls are now 8 and 9. My boys are 15 and 19.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we sent our firstborn off to college this year. And everybody's just thriving in terms of, the kids are all doing great. And it's funny because the girls regularly ask. We talk about it a lot when we're going to do foster care again,
Oh,
which is fascinating to me. But the boys were also very receptive to doing foster care again. Everyone in our family agreed that we would not want to adopt any more kids, just because we feel like four is the right number for our family.
yeah,
But everyone was still very open to the idea of continuing to foster.
that's
Um,
neat.
so there may be a time when we do again, who
Yeah.
knows? And then in terms of the other siblings involved that are with other families,
Mhm.
um, I was on a Marco Polo with them right before we got on this interview. So we talk
Mhm.
every day. They're in different, there's different levels of, some of the kids have now been adopted, some of the kids are still in care,
Okay.
um, and but on their way to adoption, or still open cases at the moment. But yeah, so we talk every single day. So when I say in the book, that they really are, I mean, this is our extended family.
Mhm.
uh, they really are. I mean, we're in each other's lives every single day, and we're trying to plan a trip to the Midwest for over the holidays at some point. We've got to figure that out. And so if we end up, in Southern Illinois, we'll for sure make time to get together as a family and
Yeah.
get the kids together. And so,
That's so neat. Well, and how much time do we have? Are we good? We have 5 minutes. I thought it was really neat. You mentioned your boys, and I loved how you gave them a voice in this. Throughout the book, you'd say, my oldest, or maybe it was felt this way, and it was like, okay, and I just thought that was really respectful. I think sometimes kids don't get their voice heard, and I thought that's just so important. And again, it says a lot to who you are, and I'm just, yeah, it was just a
well,
really pretty part of the story, like a minor part, but it's there. It's like you listen.
yeah, well, I regularly say to people, again, like I remind people, and like I said, I'm a fifth grade teacher right now,
Yeah,
and I have spent a lot of years, in different children's lives in different capacities, and I've talked to a lot of parents who come to me and say, "Oh, I've got this issue. What do I do?" And I say, "You have to remember that you're not raising children; you're raising adults."
yeah,
And so our children are going to be adults one day, and they need to not only learn the skills of like advocating for themselves and the importance of like using their voice and those kinds of things, but they're also a part of our family. And so it would be absolutely insane to me if I were like, okay, well, we're going to add some members to our family without having, at least letting them voice their opinion, and I'm
right,
not saying that they would be the final decision, but they need to at least be heard. And the reality is, I also say all the time, I keep saying I say all the time, but it's true, all of these things I say all the time, that I'd much rather hang out with kids than adults all day long, because they're so wise and they're so kind, they're so innately good, and they have such good instincts before we mess them up. And so I really have always valued my kids' opinions. And now that my son Will is 19, we've moved into this new stage of parent-child relationship where he does feel more like a friend. And there are times when I text him when I'm having a bad day, just like I would a friend. And it's not an inappropriate thing for a parent to develop a relationship with their adult children that way, and now he's an
right.
adult. And so but he's both of my boys have always been old souls. They've always been very wise. And so we never would have done anything like this had we not, let them have a voice in what we were doing.
Yeah. Well, and like you had said, well, I don't know if you said this, but it was always there. So that foundation is there for you to have that relationship with your adult son, and I don't know, sometimes I think as humans, we try to get to the finish line before we're there. And really it's these everyday decisions that make the relationships later be what they are. So yeah, I have so many notes, and we won't get to them because there's, but I was just, yeah, I'm looking at through,
I got it.
yeah, yes, ma'am.
But I just want to say thank you for writing a wonderful book. I knew it would be, and that's why I bought it to give to all my friends and
All of us. It was so fun.
all of us.
We're all like,
You get a
yay.
book. There's like, oh,
Well,
you
just
book.
so you know, when someone because we publish this, she's an independent publisher. I mean, she is out here hustling, trying to sell these books every single day. And you know, it's a hard industry to be a part of. And so when she sent me an email whenever you placed your order, because I think you bought like 10 books or something, and um and she was like, "Oh my gosh, we got our first bulk order." And we literally were like
Oh,
jaws on the floor, because that is a big deal to independent publishers to get 10 books bought in one time, you know. So
You had a
thank you for
discount, and
support.
that speaks to my heart.
That's right. There was a coupon. That's right. There was a
There was a coupon, but it was to like buy one for everybody in your book club. But you're in my book club, and so is everybody else, and so I knew
true. I am in your book
we're
club.
gonna do it.
it's so funny.
But I made my own little Shine Until Tomorrow book club at
We've
school.
been talking about it in
Rave
the hallways.
reviews. Everybody.
Well, if
Also
you guys get
excited.
together and have a real book club, let me know,
Yes.
and I'll zoom in and chat
That'd
with
be
everyone.
amazing. Oh, we should do that.
That would be fun.
Well,
Yeah,
and
get everybody together.
so I wrote this one final note. I wrote, we are all so broken. The best of humanity is to keep trying and to forgive others and ourselves when we inevitably mess up, and to love, love, and love some more. And that's what I took away from the book, by the way.
Well, I think
I even
you
said that. That might be a quote. That might be
I
a quote from the
think you
book.
read, I think you read the book then. If that's what you got from it, I think you read the book, because that was my intention. And so thank you for that feedback, that's what you read, because that's what I wanted.
Yay. Yay. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us. And yes, we will have a book club meeting where we
sure.
bring you along, and keep writing, because I want to read more, and so does the world. So thank you so much. And I am going to be talking about this some more on the channel, and we are going to hope that everyone buys it for Christmas for their sisters and mothers and aunts and everybody. So
Okay, thank
so
you so much
good.
for having me again.
Yay. All right. Bye.
Thanks,
All right, bye.